Halloween had always been a time of fun and mischief for my group of friends, and this year, we decided to take our pranks to a whole new level. We planned to orchestrate the ultimate scare for our unsuspecting friend, Mark, who had a notorious fear of the supernatural. Our plan was to lead him to an abandoned and supposedly haunted house at the edge of town, where we would stage a spooky prank he'd never forget. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the crisp autumn air filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Dressed in eerie costumes, we gathered at Mark's house for a prelude to our Halloween adventure. A full moon cast an eerie glow, and a cool breeze rustled the fallen leaves. Mark, unsuspecting and jovial, joined the group, unaware of the prank we had in store for him. With his love for horror movies and tales of the supernatural, we figured he would appreciate the scare, and we couldn't wait to see his reaction. We set out toward the abandoned house, which had sat vacant for decades, its windows boarded up, and its once vibrant garden now an overgrown tangle of thorns. The moonlight cast long, haunting shadows on the path that led us to the house's creaking front door. As we approached the house, we started to set the stage. We took turns sharing spine-tingling stories about the house's supposed history. Some said it was haunted by the spirits of its former owners, while others believed it was cursed by a malevolent presence. We watched as Mark's unease grew, his enthusiasm giving way to nervous laughter. Our group entered the dark, looming interior of the house, carrying flashlights and hidden noisemakers to enhance the eerie atmosphere. We led Mark deeper into the house, recounting fabricated stories about paranormal sightings and unexplained phenomena. The old, dusty furniture and cobweb-covered decor added to the house's unsettling ambience, and Mark's unease was palpable. But he was a good sport, and he played along with our prank, even if it was clearly making him uncomfortable. We arrived at a room that looked like a scene from a haunted movie. Old, tattered curtains danced in the moonlight, and the creaking of the floorboards seemed to echo with ghostly laughter. This was the climax of our prank, the moment we'd all been waiting for. With a dramatic flourish, we extinguished our flashlights, plunging the room into darkness. We were about to unleash a barrage of eerie sounds and ghostly illusions, sending Mark into a thrilling state of fright. But as we readied our noisemakers and fake ghostly apparitions, a sudden and bone-chilling sound cut through the silence. It was a low, guttural growl that didn't belong to any of us. Panic overcame us, and our hearts raced as we fumbled to turn our flashlights back on. When the room was illuminated once more, we saw Mark standing still, his eyes wide with terror. We followed his gaze and gasped in shock. In the corner of the room, illuminated by the moonlight, was a pair of gleaming red eyes. We had a moment to process the sheer horror of the situation before the eyes blinked, revealing themselves as the menacing amber eyes of a large, snarling dog. The creature, a massive black Rottweiler, was huddled in the corner, its teeth bared, growling ominously. Mark was frozen with fear, and we were all in a state of shock. Our Halloween prank had gone terribly wrong. The abandoned house had not been empty, and the dog, presumably a stray, had taken shelter there. As we tried to move slowly, the dog's growls intensified, and it lunged at us, its teeth snapping in the air. We backed away, shouting at Mark to make a run for it, but he was paralyzed with fear. Desperation set in, and I tried to recall everything I knew about calming aggressive dogs. I maintained eye contact with the Rottweiler and spoke in soothing tones. Slowly, the dog's growls began to subside, and it took a few steps backward, its teeth no longer bared. With trembling hands, I extended my hand, allowing the dog to sniff it. The dog's tensi posture gradually relaxed, and it allowed me to pet it gently. It was a nerve-wracking few moments, but we managed to calm the frightened animal. We led the dog out of the haunted room and out of the house, our Halloween prank abandoned entirely. Mark, pale and shaken, followed us, and the Rottweiler seemed to sense his fear and stayed close. We returned to Mark's house, our prank a distant memory, and called the local animal control to report the stray dog. It was clear that our Halloween prank had turned into a night of genuine fear and chaos. Mark, who had gone from a fear of the supernatural to a genuine fear for his life, was visibly shaken. He vowed to never set foot in another haunted house, even if it was just a Halloween prank. As the Halloween night came to a close, we couldn't help but feel a profound sense of irony. Our attempt to frighten Mark with a spooky Halloween prank had backfired in the most unexpected way, introducing us to a real-life fright we hadn't anticipated. In the end, we had a far more genuine scare than any of our fabricated ghost stories could have provided. And as we settled into the safety of Mark's home, we were reminded that sometimes the most terrifying moments come when you least expect them, turning the most innocent of intentions into a genuine, heart-pounding ordeal. The annual Sleepy Hollow Festival had taken over the heart of the city. My girlfriend Sarah and I were excited to experience this legendary event, inspired by Washington Irving's haunting tale, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We'd heard tales of the eerie atmosphere, the headless horseman, and the ghostly legends that surrounded the festival. The city streets were transformed into an otherworldly realm, with lanterns lining the sidewalks, casting an eerie glow. People roamed in elaborate costumes, some as historical figures from the story, others as the headless horseman himself. We made our way to the festival's centerpiece, the old, rustling Sleepy Hollow tree. It was said that the headless horseman was buried beneath its gnarled roots, and the tree exuded an air of malevolence that was palpable. As we approached the tree, a chill ran down my spine, and I could feel the weight of the legends that surrounded it. We watched as a reenactment of the story was performed, the horseman's ghostly figure galloping through the night, his pumpkin head ablaze. The atmosphere was electrifying, and the ghostly tale seemed to come to life before our eyes. We joined the crowd in applause, our excitement building as the night wore on. As we explored the festival, we came across a fortune teller's tent. Sarah was intrigued, and I couldn't resist her charming insistence. Inside, the fortune teller was an elderly woman, her eyes shrouded by a heavy veil. She beckoned us closer and began to read our fortunes. Her voice was a haunting whisper, and her words sent shivers down my spine. She spoke of ominous visions, of a dark presence that would follow us through the night. Sarah laughed it off, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The fortune teller's words clung to me like a shadow, and as we left her tent, I couldn't shake the feeling that something ominous loomed. The night continued with more reenactments, ghost stories, and eerie music. We marveled at the creative costumes and took photos to commemorate the evening. The Sleepy Hollow Festival was everything we had hoped for, and yet a growing sense of unease clung to me. As the clock neared midnight, we decided to make our way to the final event, a guided tour of the nearby Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. The cemetery was known for its historical significance and was rumored to be haunted by the restless spirits of the past. We joined a group of fellow festival goers, our guide leading us through the darkened cemetery. The air was thick with an eerie silence, and the towering gravestones cast long, looming shadows. Our guide spoke of the legends surrounding the cemetery, of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena. I could feel Sarah's grip on my arm tighten, and I knew that the stories were getting to her. As we walked deeper into the cemetery, a soft, chilling breeze swept through the gravestones, extinguishing our lanterns. Darkness enveloped us, and a feeling of dread washed over me. The group's hushed whispers filled the air, and we clung to one another, searching for any sign of the guide. Suddenly, the guide's voice rang out, echoing through the darkness. He urged us to remain calm and to follow the sound of his voice. We stumbled forward, our hearts pounding with fear, when a faint, ghostly figure appeared before us. It was a spectral presence, a woman in an old-fashioned dress, her eyes hollow and vacant. She beckoned to us, and the group's fear turned into a chorus of terrified screams. The figure was a phantom from the past, and she seemed to glide through the gravestones, her presence ethereal and haunting. I tried to guide Sarah away from the ghostly figure, but it was as if an invisible force held us in place. The spectral woman drew closer, her voice a mournful whisper that sent a chill through my very soul. The figure reached out to Sarah, her spectral fingers passing through my girlfriend's shoulder. Sarah let out a blood-curdling scream as the ghostly touch sent shivers down her spine. I pulled her away, and we ran through the cemetery, our lanterns casting eerie shadows on the gravestones. We finally emerged from the cemetery, our hearts racing and our breaths labored. The spectral figure had vanished, and the darkness had lifted, but the encounter had shaken us to the core. We decided to leave the festival behind and make our way home. The Sleepy Hollow Festival had taken an unexpected and terrifying turn, a night of legends and ghostly encounters that had left us scarred. As we walked back through the city streets, the memory of the spectral woman haunted my thoughts. The Sleepy Hollow Festival had lived up to its chilling reputation, and the legends of the past had come to life before our very eyes. Halloween night in New York City had become a night of terror and the supernatural, a night where the legends of Sleepy Hollow became all too real, and the line between fiction and reality blurred. The experience had left us with a newfound respect for the legends of the past and a profound sense of the mysteries that lay hidden in the shadows. Halloween night had arrived, and I was eager for a thrilling adventure that would top all others. I'd found the perfect opportunity to fulfill that desire. A remote Airbnb nestled in the eerie woods, far away from the usual trick-or-treaters and costume parties. It was a rustic cabin, an hour's drive from town, and the photos online showcased a charming, tranquil retreat. The gloomy, overcast sky added to the sense of foreboding as I navigated the winding roads leading to my secluded destination. The sparse streetlights cast long, eerie shadows that played tricks on my imagination. The closer I got to the cabin, the heavier the feeling in my chest became. My excitement was mingled with a creeping sense of unease, a gut feeling that something was amiss. The cabin came into view, its wooden walls and pitched roof standing stark against the dark woods. The surrounding forest seemed to press in, its trees dense and foreboding. It wasn't exactly the cozy escape I had envisioned, but it was undeniably beautiful in its own way. A sense of isolation swept over me as I parked my car and stepped out into the chilly night. The crunch of fallen leaves underfoot echoed through the silence, and the smell of damp earth and rotting leaves filled the air. I found the key hidden in the lockbox and let myself into the cabin. The interior was dimly lit, and the flickering flames of a single candle provided the only source of illumination. The rustic decor and vintage furniture created a nostalgic, cozy atmosphere, but the oppressive stillness was palpable. I wandered through the rooms, my footsteps echoing in the empty cabin. The kitchen was well equipped. The living room was furnished with plush couches and a large, crackling fireplace, and the bedroom held a comfortable-looking bed with heavy drapes covering the windows. The owner's attention to detail was clear, but the overall ambiance was disconcerting. With the settling of darkness outside, the cabin felt like an island in an inky sea. The sense of isolation was unnerving, but I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. Halloween had a way of playing tricks on the mind, and my imagination was in overdrive. As night deepened, I decided to light a few more candles, casting eerie, flickering shadows that danced on the walls. The sound of the wind rustling the trees outside added to the sense of isolation. I made a simple dinner and settled into the living room, determined to enjoy my solo Halloween retreat. The hours passed slowly, and my apprehension only grew with each ticking minute. A soft, barely audible whisper drifted into my consciousness. It was so faint that I questioned whether it was real. I dismissed it as the wind playing tricks, but as I strained my ears, the whisper grew louder, more distinct. It was a voice, a haunting murmur that sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't make out the words, but the spectral voice seemed to fill the room, drifting from one corner to the next. It was as if the cabin itself had come to life with a sinister presence. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized the whispering was coming from the bedroom. I hesitated, my fear gripping me. Gathering my courage, I made my way to the bedroom door. The murmur grew louder, more desperate, and the heavy drapes were swaying as if disturbed by some invisible force. I pushed the door open, and my breath caught in my throat. The room was empty, but the voice persisted, its mournful wail filling the air. It seemed to emanate from the closet, a tall old wardrobe that stood in the corner. With trembling hands, I opened the wardrobe door, expecting to find the source of the spectral voice. But the wardrobe was empty, save for a few dusty shelves. The whispering, however, continued, and I felt as if I were being drawn deeper into the dark recesses of the closet. I stepped inside the wardrobe, and the world around me shifted. I found myself in a shadowy, ethereal forest, the moon casting an eerie glow through the dense canopy of trees. The whispering voice was now all around me, its words becoming more distinct. "Help me," it begged, its tone filled with anguish and despair. "Help me find the way." I ventured deeper into the ghostly forest, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The spectral trees seemed to close in around me, and the path grew narrower with each step. The whispering grew louder, its source elusive. And then, I saw her, a young woman dressed in a tattered vintage gown. Her eyes were filled with sorrow, and her spectral form seemed to flicker in and out of existence. She reached out to me, her hand trembling. "Help me," she implored, her voice filled with longing. "I'm lost in this place. Please, help me find my way." I didn't know how to respond, but a sense of compassion compelled me to follow her. We walked deeper into the ghostly forest, the world around us shrouded in an unsettling mist. The trees whispered secrets, their branches reaching out to ensnare us. As we ventured deeper into the spectral woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was now a part of a nightmarish Halloween tale. The voice of the woman echoed in my mind, and I felt a profound sense of dread. The forest seemed to go on forever, and the path grew more twisted and treacherous. The spectral woman led me deeper into the unknown, her presence a haunting reminder of the eerie cabin I had left behind. And then, as we rounded a bend in the forest, I saw it. The cabin. The same cabin I had rented on Halloween night. It stood before us, an island in the ghostly sea of the woods. The woman's spectral form dissolved into the darkness, and the whispering voice faded. I stumbled out of the woods, my heart pounding, and found myself back in the dimly lit cabin. The room was empty, the candle flames casting eerie, dancing shadows on the walls. The voice in the spectral woman had vanished, leaving me alone in the eerie cabin on Halloween night. The sense of isolation and dread had intensified, and I realized I had become a part of a ghostly tale, a story that defied reason and logic. As I settled into a sleepless night, I couldn't help but wonder what had happened on that fateful Halloween night. Had I encountered a restless spirit, a lost soul seeking release from the spectral forest? Or had my own imagination played tricks on me, conjuring a tale of horror and mystery that was beyond my comprehension? Halloween, it seemed, had a way of blurring the boundaries between reality and the supernatural, leaving me with an unsettling story that would haunt my memory for years to come. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.